We are all born into a world that teaches us directly and indirectly that control is safety. But from a young age, we are told to keep things in order, to manage our emotions, to plan our futures, and to avoid the unknown. And so, we build our lives on the foundation of control, believing that if we can just get everything to go our way, we'll finally be happy, finally be at peace. But the deeper truth is this: the more we try to control life, the more anxious, restless, and disconnected we become. Peace isn't found in control, it's found in surrender. Alan Watts often pointed out that the world is not a machine to be programmed, but a symphony to be danced with. When we try to control the music, we miss the rhythm. When we try to predict every note, we forget how to feel. And when we forget how to feel, we forget how to live. Think about it. How much of your stress comes from trying to control the uncontrollable? You want people to act a certain way, your plans to unfold perfectly, your emotions to stay within certain boundaries. But life has never agreed to those terms. It moves on its own, like a river. And the more you resist it, the more exhausted you become. Alan Watts said, "Trying to control the future is like trying to take the horizon and move it closer. It's a game you can't win." We live in a culture obsessed with optimization, optimizing time, productivity, image, even spirituality. But optimization is just perfectionism in disguise. And perfectionism is fear cloaked in logic. What we're really trying to do is guarantee safety in a world where safety is never guaranteed. That's not peace. That's a prison.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Real peace begins the moment you realize you don't need to control everything to be okay. You don't need to force life to meet your expectations. You don't need to manipulate your image to be loved. You don't need to manage every outcome to feel secure. You can let go, not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up. Surrender isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the radical act of trusting life, even when you don't understand it. That doesn't mean you stop making choices. It means you stop clinging to outcomes. You do your part, and then you let go. You show up with intention, but without attachment. That's where peace lives, not in control, but in connection. Not in rigidity, but in flow. Not in the illusion of safety, but in the truth of presence. So I ask you, what would it feel like to truly let go? To stop gripping so tightly to your plans, your image, your fears? Who would you be without all the tension? Maybe you've never met that version of yourself, but they're in there, waiting. Underneath the need to control is a deep inner wisdom that already knows how to dance with life. It's the part of you that knows how to breathe, how to feel, how to be. You don't have to manufacture peace. You just have to stop resisting it. Alan Watts said, "When you let go of trying to control the universe begins to dance with you. That dance is waiting. All you have to do is stop fighting the music." There is a subtle but powerful shift that happens when we stop trying to dominate life and start participating in it. Most of us are so caught up in the illusion of control that we don't realize how much energy we're burning just trying to hold it all together. We micromanage our relationships, rehearse conversations in our heads, build mental spreadsheets of what could go wrong, and obsess over making the right decision. But here's the truth: control is not clarity. In fact, the more we try to control life, the less clearly we see it. We're so busy bracing for impact that we miss the beauty of the present moment, Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. When we surrender, we finally drop that panic. We stop running, and in that stillness we find ourselves. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop pretending you're the one pulling all the strings. It means you stop acting like the universe is a machine that will break down without your constant supervision. It means you stop believing that your worth is tied to how much you can manipulate your emotions, your image, or your future. Real strength isn't about control, it's about resilience. It's about being able to stand in the middle of uncertainty and not collapse. And ironically, that kind of power only comes when you stop trying to force it. You begin to trust that even when things don't go your way, life is still unfolding exactly as it needs to. That trust isn't naive. It's wise. Because life has been taking care of itself for billions of years without your help. The sun rises. The seasons turn. Rivers flow. Hearts beat. You are part of that same intelligence. Why not trust it? Now consider this. What if your deepest suffering isn't coming from what's happening, but from your resistance to what's happening? Think about the last time you were overwhelmed. Was it the situation itself, or your belief that it shouldn't be happening? That's where control becomes a trap. We think, this shouldn't be this way. But life doesn't care about our shoulds. It only cares about what is. And when we argue with what is, we suffer. When we accept it, we find clarity. That doesn't mean we don't act. It means we act from presence, not from panic. From alignment, not from fear. It means we meet life on its own terms instead of trying to force it to match our script. And in that shift, something miraculous happens. We stop being dragged by life, and we start dancing with it. So here's the deepest question. Can you surrender even when it hurts? Can you let go not just when things are easy, but when they fall apart? Peace isn't about everything going right, it's about being okay even when it doesn't. And that kind of peace only comes through surrender. The kind of surrender that says, I don't understand this, but I trust it. The kind that allows grief, confusion, and even fear to move through you without trying to shut them down. Because peace doesn't come from avoiding pain, it comes from not resisting it. Alan Watts reminded us that life is a process, not a problem to be solved. The more we try to fix it, the more tangled it becomes. But when we relax into it, when we surrender to the flow, we find that we are not separate from life, but part of it. And in that realization, control becomes irrelevant. Because you are no longer trying to manage the river. You are becoming the river. There's a kind of wisdom that only comes when we stop grasping. When we allow the world to be as it is, rather than how we wish it would be, something remarkable happens. We become intimate with reality. Not the filtered, polished version of life that we try to control, but the raw, unpredictable, sacred truth of each moment. This intimacy is not just spiritual, it's practical. Because when you stop trying to control outcomes, your mind becomes lighter, your body less tense, your decisions more aligned. You begin to act from clarity rather than compulsion. And suddenly, life isn't something to survive, it becomes something to participate in, to explore, to love. Alan Watts often reminded us that we are not separate from the universe, we are expressions of it. Like waves are expressions of the ocean. So when we let go of control, we're not giving up, we're tuning in. Think of the moments when you felt most alive. Were you calculating every step, every word, every outcome? Or were you immersed in something bigger than yourself, dancing, laughing, crying, exploring, falling in love, creating art, being in nature? Those moments weren't controlled, they were surrendered to. They were moments when you let go of the ego's grip and allowed life to move through you. That's the doorway to peace, not when everything is perfect, but when you stop resisting imperfection. And this is the paradox: the more you let go, the more life begins to align. Not because you're forcing it, but because you're no longer getting in the way. Control narrows your field of vision. Surrender expands it. And in that expansion, you begin to see possibilities you never imagined. But surrender is not a one-time decision. It's a practice. 1,000 tiny moments each day where you choose to release instead of grip. When your plans change, can you breathe instead of panic? When someone misunderstands you, can you trust your truth instead of defending yourself? When emotions rise, can you feel them instead of fixing them? These are the daily acts of surrender. Not dramatic, not public, but deeply powerful. They are the quiet revolutions that dismantle the illusion of control and bring you home to yourself. And over time, you'll notice something strange. The more you surrender, the more peace becomes your natural state. Not because life stopped being chaotic, but because you stopped needing it to be anything else. So I leave you with this. What would your life look like if you trusted it? If you trusted that even in the mess, there's meaning. That even in the unknown, there's intelligence. That even in surrender, there is strength. Alan Watts once said, "The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance." You don't need to control the music. You just need to hear it. Let it move you. Let it carry you. Let it show you that peace was never a product of control, but of connection, presence, and trust. You were never meant to hold the river. You were meant to flow with it. Let go, float, trust. And in doing so, you won't just find peace, you'll remember that you are peace. There is an unseen intelligence flowing through everything, through the beating of your heart, the fall of the rain, the silence between thoughts. This intelligence doesn't need to be managed or micromanaged. It doesn't need your stress, your worry, your endless planning. It just needs space to breathe. And when we stop trying to control it, we begin to sense its presence. Alan Watts often spoke of the Tao, the way the natural unfolding of the universe that requires no interference. It is not something you do, it's something you allow. This is not about blind passivity. It's about deep trust. Trust in the unfolding, trust in the process, trust in the parts of life that your mind cannot yet understand. Control says, "I must make this happen." Trust whispers, "Let it happen through me." And in that whisper, you find a kind of peace that can't be manufactured, only remembered. When you begin to live from this place of surrender, something inside you softens. You stop trying to win every argument, fix every flaw, or predict every outcome. Instead, you become curious, open, receptive. You start to notice small things, the way the wind moves through trees, the quiet wisdom in a friend's eyes, the relief in a deep breath. Life becomes less about results and more about relationship, your relationship with life itself. You begin to see that peace isn't out there waiting at the end of a checklist, it's right here, in this breath, in this moment, if only you stop resisting it. And the more you let go, the more you see that life has always been trying to support you. Even the hard moments, even the breakdowns, they weren't punishments. They were invitations to awaken. But here's the real truth that most people never realize: surrender is not weakness. It is the ultimate courage, because it takes real strength to release control in a world that worships domination. It takes real maturity to say, I don't know what comes next, and that's okay. It takes real awareness to let life lead the dance. And in doing so, you become not smaller, but bigger. You expand beyond the ego's narrow limits. You step into a deeper intelligence, a greater flow. And from that space, your actions become more powerful, not because they're calculated, but because they're aligned. You're no longer reacting from fear. You're responding from presence. And presence, unlike control, carries the weight of truth. So let me leave you with one final question, one that might haunt you in the best way possible. What if the only thing standing between you and peace is your refusal to let go? What if everything you're trying to control is exactly what's keeping you from the life you're meant to live? Imagine letting go, not just in theory, but in practice. Imagine breathing into your fear instead of fighting it. Imagine opening to the unknown instead of avoiding it. Imagine floating down the river instead of swimming upstream. Maybe then, for the first time, you'd taste what real peace feels like. Not the peace of a perfect life, but the peace of a perfect presence. That's what Alan Watts was pointing us toward. Not control. Not perfection, but the simple, sacred art of being here fully, freely, and without resistance. The river is calling. Will you let go or be dragged? Thank you for walking this path with me. If this moved you, share it, reflect on it, live it. Until next time, trust the flow.